So let's talk gear, because before we set up any of your stream elements or how you would actually do any of your live streams, you need to know what equipment you may want to use or that you have available that you currently can use for live streaming. There are going to be a couple different options. We're going to go from simple to a bit more advanced. And even though some of these pieces may be advanced, they're still very easy to learn. A lot of brands are doing a fantastic job these days that people are now more attracted to what you're doing. So I want to break down what an actual story framework is, so that is in addition to the Ecamm Live website. So let's talk camera options. One of everyone's favorite topics, especially me myself, is going to be cameras. This makes or breaks a live stream, I think, in addition to audio, which will cover microphones in just a bit. When you have a camera, it makes a lot of things possible because it frees you up from having to worry about, are you in focus or not? It frees you up from knowing that whatever ideas that you have, that you actually can pull off at the quality level that you want. But that's going to depend on the gear that you invest in. We like to teach a buy it right or buy it twice kind of mentality. Yes, there are plenty of options available on Amazon or a myriad of things recommended across YouTube. However, if you want to get the best results possible, then you don't necessarily have to have the best of the best top tier equipment. That definitely helps, but you want to make sure that you have equipment that is going to do the job and do the job well without introducing any complications or unnecessary steps or hurdles for you to jump over. So let's talk about the best cameras to start with if today is your day one. One of the best camera options that you can choose from is going to be your smartphone. You could be watching this actual video right now on your smartphone, and it honestly is a camera. They update these every single year, not because they're going to send email faster or give you text messages that look so much better, but simply because of the camera and some of the video functions, as well as like some industry leading things. That the camera is always one of the biggest parts of any keynote for any release. That being said, when you take a look at your smartphone, most people get comfortable using the front-facing screen. Now, if you're doing something like Instagram stories or TikTok videos, that's fine because it allows you to have all your camera options and everything like that. However, when it comes to your live streams, you do want to make sure you're starting with the best possible quality that's currently available to you, and that is going to be the rear facing cameras on your phone. This does feel a little bit uncomfortable because that means that you won't see yourself, and it is comforting at times to actually look at yourself. But if I had to look at the screen for me looking at myself right now, I'm looking away from the actual camera, and that's not going to be one of the best practices when it comes to using your camera, which we'll get into a bit later. So when you are changing up your scenes or using different things, you want to make sure that you're starting with a good image. And if you're using your smartphone, it's going to be the rear facing cameras, and it's a really great source to start with. A couple ways that you can connect this with your Ecamm Live setup is going to be via NDI, and that is a wireless type of option. There is some known delays when it comes to the audio if you're trying to sync that up a bit, but that is when you get into the mic delay and making sure things are adjusted properly. But there is a better option, which is wired. Most times you're going to have a better result with any setups using a wired solution instead of a wireless solution. And that includes your live streaming setup. When you think about how you want to connect to your phone, you want something that's going to charge it as well as allow you to see it. And that most of the time, especially if you're using like an iPhone, you don't need to download any programs. You literally can take that same charging cable that you're using, connect it up to Ecamm, and use that as your camera source. The next very easy options that you can start with when it comes to live streaming is using a webcam. Sometimes on your MacBook Pros, and those are okay, but they're going to be like 720p, which is a lower quality HD resolution. It's fine in most scenarios, like if you're on the go, traveling, things like that. However, if you're at your at-home setup, your stationary setup, they don't tend to look the best. It tends to have a little bit of a grainy image, and I don't understand quite why, but they always seem to be way worse than anything else. But that is an option if you want to get started. The best thing I would suggest if you're going to use that is have adequate lighting. Have really good lighting. Sit next to a window or have dedicated lighting sitting in front of you or something like that so that you can help that camera as much as possible. But you have other webcam options that are way better. You have the Logitech Brio. That is a 4K web camera. It runs about $160 US, as well as Elgato's face cam that is somewhere in that ballpark still of $160. And these have really good options. They do come with software that you would need to go to the manufacturer to download and get access to. But most of the time, These are plug and play options that you literally connect it in via USB and you're good to go. Once you have that set up, then you'll see this option become available as your camera source, and you can choose this across any of your scenes so that if you're going from one scene to the next, the camera doesn't change. It's always going to be the camera that you select. The next camera options that you have available are something that's a little bit of a step up, and that's using a mirrorless camera as your actual webcam. We saw this after 2020, where a ton of manufacturers for cameras allowed the ability to connect your camera to your computer and use it for live streaming simply by using a USB cable. The type of cable that you use is going to be dependent on the camera that you invest in, but there are some really good, very budget-friendly, affordable options that you can get started, and you may already own one of these and you just haven't connected up for live streaming yet. Now, this does introduce the next step of what are the best settings when it comes to live streaming. I highly would encourage you to check out some of the training tutorials or walkthrough videos for the dedicated camera that you choose to invest in, because sometimes there are some things that you need to change in the settings in order to activate this. However, with the magic of Ecamm, they already have it baked into the software where we've tested quite a few cameras. So no matter if you're using Canon, Sony, Fuji, Olympus, Nikon cameras, it literally doesn't matter. Most of these cameras and most of the models, we've already have it baked in. You don't need to download any applications. You may only need to change 1 or 2 settings, and then you can literally connect your mirrorless camera up as a webcam without any additional tools or accessories. Now that's using a USB option. There is one other option that may give you a little bit better quality, but honestly, the difference becomes a little bit negligible when you're looking at the streaming quality comparison, especially if you're talking about an educated audience or an audience that's not very familiar with anything. They just know it looks better than anything that they've seen on any Zoom call in probably about the last 2 years. Now, when it comes to choosing a camera, if you want to invest in this, currently the recommendations that we're moving with are cameras that have 2 main settings, and that's going to be clean HDMI, which is that little port that you'll see on the side of your camera that will allow you to use what's called a capture card. It literally captures the image from the camera and it's going to share that to your computer, change that HDMI connection into a USB one so that your camera and your computer work together seamlessly. Now, this is something that, again, it starts to get a little bit more advanced, and we'll specifically talk about this in a dedicated training. I'll take one of our recommended cameras and show you how to set this up. But for right now, let's just stick with a quick overview. The second option that we highly recommend is making sure that you invest in a mirrorless camera that has really good autofocus. If you've noticed throughout this whole training, I've not had to worry about how much I move or if I move my hands around or anything like that. The camera stays focused on my face. And there's really 2 primary brands. The other brands are doing really good to try to get better and better. But currently we found the best success with really 2 brands of cameras, and that's Canon and Sony mirrorless cameras. So what about DSLR cameras? Aren't they the same as mirrorless cameras? Well, the honest answer is no. These cameras are very different. One has an actual mirror that flips up and down in them. That's that DSLR camera. And the mirrorless camera does not have that little action in there. It actually doesn't have a mirror. That's why it's called mirrorless. Now, the difference in quality between these 2 in an experienced hand isn't much, but many DSLR cameras weren't built for video, nor were they built for a hybrid use of photos and video. But you may have one of these cameras lying around and wondering, can I use this or do I really need to buy something else? Sometimes you do need to invest in something better simply because it won't introduce as many issues. Some of the common issues we found when people try to use older DSLRs that really aren't built for live streaming or any video capabilities truly, that the camera does not autofocus very well. The live streaming capabilities are at a very low quality, and so for the work that they're trying to do to really pull out the image, it becomes more hassle than it's worth. So sometimes that investment or even trading in old camera gear and equipment toward the new purchase becomes way more advantageous because it saves you time and efficiency, and you may not have to buy another camera for the next 4 or 5 years unless you choose to. The other issue that we found with DSLR cameras is similar to that first recommendation and requirement that we had if you're going to invest in a camera, and that's clean HDMI. There's a such thing as what we call dirty HDMI, and that's the fact that all of the icons that you would see on the screen are on the screen, so you can see the autofocus box, or it's hunting back and forth, so it doesn't autofocus all that great. So when you have these two complications added in, it makes for a very frustrating stream, because you're knowing that you want your image to look a certain way and your camera simply isn't capable. So check out your manufacturer's website and look up your specific model to see, is your camera really good for live streaming, or is it time to maybe potentially invest in something better? So when it comes down to mirrorless camera options, we really only recommend two specific brands. Not that other brands aren't great or that you can't use other brands if you enjoy them. We encourage you to use what you enjoy best, but we tend to find that the best results come from Sony as well as Canon and their mirrorless options specifically, not any DSLR cameras. Couple cameras that you may consider checking out and see if they have the features that you need beyond live streaming that may work best for you. If you're looking at Canon cameras, you can look at a camera like the Canon M50 Mark II, which some users, if they're looking to just get into the ecosystem of Canon, or maybe they have existing or old DSLR lenses, this is a good starting point. If you want to spend like an extra $100 to $200 and get way more quality and features, I think take a look at the Canon M6 Mark II, and those are just some of the starting options. There's a such thing as what's called full frame, and that's a whole other conversation we're not gonna dive into here, but just know that you have things like the Canon R, the Canon RP, you have the Canon R5 and R6 that some people are really starting to enjoy using, especially that Canon R6. So those are some of the Canon options. Some of the recommended Sony camera options currently are the Sony ZV-E10, as well as you'll see the Sony ZV-1, that's the point and shoot style model of it, where you cannot remove the lenses of that camera. But the ZV-E10 is a really fantastic camera because it has eye autofocus as well as the face detection autofocus as well. And this includes for humans as well as animals. They definitely meets that clean HDMI as well as great autofocus that we look for when we're looking for a camera dedicated for video. And it has a flip out screen and a lot of other things that are really amazing. And all of these options that we're recommending do have 4K with the extent of the M50 Mark II. It doesn't have 4K that focuses well, so keep that in mind when you're considering cameras. The other Sony options would be, if you're looking at full frame, would be like a Sony a7C, a Sony a7 Mark IV. These are the current latest cameras that can be great. There are a lot of cameras on the market, so try not to get too in the weeds when it comes to this. You really want to get something that meets your requirements for the kind of work or the kind of content that you intend to create. And the difference really when it comes down to what's the difference between Canon and Sony. Right now, currently, as of 2022, Canon currently does not produce any cameras that has a unlimited recording option. So what this means is that while you're hooked up to a computer, like with using Ecamm Live, you're good to go. However, if you want to record or talk or do something like that, unfortunately, you're stuck at a 29 minutes and 59 seconds limit. So this means you'd have to have a remote or somebody to man the camera for you just to watch it and restart it for you every 30 minutes. So if you're doing podcasts on location and you don't have your computer and you're just trying to record this directly, this is going to be a problem because it'll interrupt what you're trying to do. When you look at some of the Sony options, nearly all of their cameras, some of the latest models over about the last 4 or so years, have unlimited recording in them. So this tends to be a better option when you're streaming, when you're on screen, as well as off. So you can set up your camera, record, and you don't have to worry about it. And when it comes to audio, this is going to be the most important investment that you make when it comes to live streaming. You absolutely want to invest in a very good microphone, because if somebody joins a live stream and they notice that the audio is not great, or it sounds like they're having to struggle to listen to you from down the hall, it makes people leave your stream faster than you would hope. So there are a couple recommendations, and there's 2 categories for this, which is going to be USB based microphones and XLR based microphones. The difference between these two is that one allows you to essentially plug and play. No software really and technology needed other than a USB port to connect your microphone to your computer. And the other takes a more traditional style approach to this that allows you to connect still your microphone to your computer, but in the middle of that is going to be an audio interface. So something like the Rodecaster Pro or the Scarlett 2i2 or the Behringer 404 HD or something very similar. Some recommendations when it comes to USB-based microphone sources would include the Shure MV7, which has actually both USB and XLR, which is probably one of the best options that you can start with. That'll actually last you for several years until you're ready to actually upgrade or change microphones on your own. And then the other is something like the Samson Q2U or Audio-Technica ATR 2100. And these are microphones that have both USB and XLR as well. It just depends on kind of like the style or the look that you want. Now, these are microphones that do need to be in the shot, so you do want to be in close proximity. These aren't microphones that you would tend to hang overhead or something like that. That's a different conversation, but you do want to get the best results for a microphone, and that requires for that microphone to be in close proximity to the talent. So all of these microphones that we're going to talk about are microphones like that. The next option that you can consider is a XLR microphone. Now, these microphones have a traditional 3-prong type tip that will need to go into that audio interface that we talked about. We highly recommend checking out the Rodecaster Pro. It is pretty much an all-in-one audio solution when it comes to recording, live streaming, taking on live calls, as well as like having like an audio engineer in the box. There's really not too many things that you can think about doing that the Rodecaster Pro can't do. Now, that's a little bit on the if you're ready to invest in like the last thing that you may need for your show kind of a thing. But if you really just want something that will connect your microphone to your computer, take a look at just an audio interface option, something like the Scarlett 2i2 or the Behringer 404 HD or something very similar. So it's just really going to take that XLR connection, go into the audio interface, and then connect to your computer. So which of these two options is going to give you the best results? Well, honestly, when you take a look at both, there's really just two different approaches when it comes to this of the USB or XLR. And it's honestly, do you want a plug and play option? Or do you want something that allows space for growth in your audio capabilities? This is where most people take that XLR route because they do want to get something like the Rodecaster Pro that allow you to play sound effects and things like that. And again, connect your phone to it and do a ton of other things that honestly would be about 4 or 5 different devices that would be a much higher cost, all baked into one very nice and neat package. Someone that's just looking to honestly connect to their computer and be done with audio, that's when you really want to take a look at the Shure MV7. It's probably one of our highest recommended microphones for live streaming or recorded videos in general, because it gives you both options. Start with the USB today, and then if you do want to change over into maybe later or a couple years down the line, getting the Rodecaster Pro or whatever is recommended at that time, then you can switch to the XLR connection that's already built into the microphone, and you don't have to buy another mic.